Before we start the lip procedure, there are some technique tips that I want to go over with you. First one is, we will start by doing the lip liner. First of all, you want to draw. I always draw with a pattern pen, a pattern for my clients, evening out any asymmetrical issues or concerns that they have. And I typically stay right along the edge of the vermilion border. If you have a client with very thin lips, you can certainly go a little bit on the outside of that border. However, your client needs to be cautioned that by going outside outside of the vermilion border, you can actually end up with a little bit of a darker lip liner look. This tissue outside of the border will hold pigment a little bit darker than this inside fleshy tissue of the vermilion. So it's certainly something that can be done, and it can give the illusion of slightly thicker lips. However, a client just needs to be aware that it could lead to a little bit darker lip liner appearance. Now for the lip procedures, I'm using a coil machine. I always start with the lip liner first. And once I've got my pattern drawn, I start on the client's left corner and work my way around the lips this way. Once I get to the end, I come back over to the left side, start on the lower line. Again, working my way all the way around. For the lip liner, you would want to hold the probe at about a 45-degree angle to the skin. And again, you're stretching a small area with my left hand, index finger, and thumb, and making one row of slow, steady, overlapping circles, tightly stretched skin, and you go all the way across. Stretching small segments of skin all the way across. Slow, steady, overlapping circles to really get the pigment down in there, overlap the circles so that you get good solid coverage. And the same thing once we start on the bottom lip, stretching small areas of skin. Now you'll typically have to go over the lip line 2 to 4 times to get good solid coverage. You can get a nice idea and certainly get your outline. You can go around your outline. With the first pass, your coverage is not going to be likely. It's not going to be very good, very solid. But at least you've got your pattern outlined. So then it's just a matter of going back and going over it another 2 to 3 times to get a good solid foundation. The lip liner is very important. You want a nice, crisp, solid line. Without that, the lip appearance can be rather jagged and messy looking. So lip liner is very important. Once you've completed the lip liner, you'll move on to a machine set up for shading. That machine will have the larger magnum needle in it. That needle is a little bit different. It's large and flat, and the needles are stacked one on top of the other. You'll hold that machine at a different angle. You'll want it to be a much smaller angle, about approximately 25 degrees. You'll hold that much more horizontal toward the skin. Again, I start on the client's left side of her mouth and work my way across. Again, you'll stretch small sections of the skin with your left hand, making larger oval-shaped overlapping ovals. Moving slow and steady, overlap, oval. You don't want to do little tiny circles. This probe is too large for that. It will really damage the skin. You'll overwork the skin in quick order by doing that. Stretch the skin tightly, 25-degree angle, large oval. What I typically do is work all the way across. All the way across the uppermost area. It looks like you can see a gap here. Actually, what you're doing is you'll overlap these ovals right up next to the lip liner that you've just made. You don't want to go outside of your lip liner, but you want to go right up next to it. Like so. Once I get all the way across, all the way to the right side of the lip, I go back and start again on the left side, just slightly below this top row. I'll start again, overlapping ovals, and this second row of ovals will actually slightly overlap the first. Like so. And you just keep building row after row, overlapping as you're working. The ovals that the row that you're working on, those ovals overlap, as well as overlapping onto the previous row. Then same thing for the bottom. Start 25-degree angle, stretch the skin, start right next to the lip liner that you just made, like so. Work all the way across, go back and start a second row, building on top of the row that you just completed, overlapping, so that each row overlaps and each oval overlaps. That way you get a nice, solid, filled-in appearance. What you really want to do is have good color coverage. You don't want the color to be spotty or lighter in some areas and darker in some areas. So by doing this slow and steady oval movement, probe at about 25 degrees so that you don't overwork the skin, and stretch the skin very tightly as you're working. So now that we know the technique for doing both the lip liner, small circles, skin stretched tightly, small circles overlapping, 45-degree angle. And we know the technique for filling in the vermilion, the fleshy part of the lips. Same technique for stretching the skin. Different needle configuration held at a 25-degree angle, working in larger oval patterns, slowly and steadily overlapping row after row. Now that we know the techniques for both procedures, let's go get our client ready and get started.
Okay, you can just keep your teeth together. I'm going to cover
can't
them
feel
with gauze.
anything.
Oh, together. There you go.
does it for lip liner. Now what we'll do is go around and fill in the vermilion with a different needle. I use called an 11 Magnum. It's a flat, large probe that really puts in a lot of color while doing the least amount of tissue trauma possible.
And this is the one that we hold at a little more of an angle, about a 25-degree angle to the tissue.
You always want to stretch the skin fairly tightly. That will help get as much color into the skin as in the shortest amount of time. It's always a little bit hard to stretch the tissue around the lips, so I always use 2 gauze pads just to help stretch.
I'm using a slow oval pattern. This needle we hold at a little more of an angle, about 25 degrees, and work in a slow oval pattern, overlapping the ovals.
I find it's easier just to try to stretch very small sections of the lip instead of trying to spread your fingers apart and stretch the whole lip at once. It's easier just to work in very small areas. You can see it covers a fairly large area in a relatively quick time.
Now you just go back over for a second pass around. You can see that there are areas that got skipped or where the pigment didn't adhere very well. The better you stretch the skin, the better coverage you're going to get. As you work, you can see lips bleed a little bit and get a little bit slippery. That's why I use 2 pieces of gauze to really get a good stretch on the skin and so that my fingers don't slip. So working with these overlapping ovals, the slower you go, the faster coverage you'll get. Don't rush along. Rushing causes more tissue trauma and even more swelling. The lips are going to swell enough anyway by themselves. You don't need to cause extra damage by rushing too fast. Try to tuck some pigment down into the corner. Really gives a finished, complete appearance to the lip color. That way you don't have that abrupt stop at the corner. The color actually carries down into the inside. You can kind of see right there. fill in here, and I think we're just about done. Okay. Take that gauze out. I'm just going to get some cold pads and let you relax for a few minutes. Okay, so here we are after the procedure is done. You can see the color is pretty intense, a little bit harsh. And there's certainly some swelling, but that will all tone down over the next 4 or 5 days. Let's see if I can get closer. There we go. Okay.